Zero to Hero, my $100 success story. Life is full of hidden secrets, of things we never expect to come our way. There are moments when everything feels hopeless, when it seems like the world is against us. But sometimes it's in the darkest times that we discover our true strength. What we are about to learn is not just about success, but about the journey, about the tears, the losses, the heartbreaks, the disappointments, and the ultimate realization that we have the power to change our lives. It's not just a story of turning a small amount into much more. It's a story about rising from the ashes, about finding hope when everything seems lost. Let's dive into this journey of struggle, growth, and finally, triumph. It all started in the quiet town of Valley View, where I was just another face in the crowd. My name is John, and I had always dreamed of something bigger than my small, ordinary life. But life had a way of knocking me down at every turn. I had a job at a local diner, which barely paid enough to cover rent and food. There was no time for dreams or hopes when you were stuck in survival mode. But then, something changed. One day, as I walked to work, a thought hit me. What if I could turn things around with nothing more than $100? A mere $100. It sounded crazy, but I had nothing to lose. I had already lost so much: family, friends, even my own sense of hope. What if this small amount of money could change everything? I didn't know the answer, but I was determined to find out. Before I made my decision, I couldn't help but think about the past. I remembered my mother, the woman who raised me with love despite all odds. She passed away when I was 17, and it hit me like a thunderbolt. I was left with nothing but memories and a deep sense of guilt for not being there in her final moments. I had always promised myself I would make her proud, but now it felt like I had failed. The weight of that guilt was unbearable, but it also became my motivation. I needed to prove to myself and to her that I could turn my life around. As I sat on the bus that morning, clutching that $100 bill in my pocket, I thought about the sacrifices my mother had made for me. I remembered her smile, how she always told me to never give up, no matter how hard life got. It was in that moment, as I thought about her words, that I made the decision to take the first step toward my new life. I was going to make something of myself, starting with that $100. I knew I couldn't waste it on anything frivolous. The first thing I did was spend it on a few books. Books on business, books on self-improvement, books on investing. I figured if I could learn something, maybe I could turn that knowledge into something more. But it wasn't easy. There were moments when I felt like quitting. Moments when I wondered if it was even worth it. There were nights when I cried myself to sleep, feeling the weight of my past and the fear of failure. But I couldn't stop. I knew that if I gave up, I would never forgive myself. I had already come so far, and the thought of turning back was unbearable. I wanted to make a difference, not just in my life, but in the lives of others. One of the hardest parts of this journey was dealing with the loneliness I was working hard, but I had no one to share my dreams with. I felt invisible, like I didn't belong anywhere. I would sit alone at the dinner table, remembering the days when my family was whole, before everything fell apart. Those moments of isolation were the hardest, but they also gave me time to reflect. They made me realize that sometimes you have to be alone to find your true self. As time went on, I started to see small signs of progress. I began to get freelance work, helping small businesses with their online presence. I wasn't making much, but it was a start. Slowly, my reputation grew, and more people started reaching out to me. But there were still moments of doubt. Would this really work? Was I just fooling myself into thinking I could succeed? Then, one day, I got a call that changed everything. A well-known company had seen my work and wanted to hire me. The contract was worth thousands of dollars. It was the moment I had been waiting for. But even as I celebrated, a part of me felt empty. I had finally made it. But at what cost? I had spent so many years working alone, sacrificing relationships, and missing out on life. As I worked on the project, I couldn't help but think about the people I had hurt along the way. I thought about my father, who I had pushed away after a fight we had years ago. He was the only family I had left, and I realized I had been carrying that hurt for too long. I called him one evening, after weeks of planning, and we talked for the first time in years. I told him how much I regretted, the things I had said, how much I missed him. That conversation didn't fix everything, but it was the beginning of healing. But life wasn't all smooth sailing. There were moments when the weight of past mistakes came crashing back. There were days when I felt like giving up, when the loneliness crept in again. I still struggled with the guilt of losing my mother and not being there when she needed me. It was a wound that never truly healed. But even through that pain, I kept pushing forward, knowing that I couldn't change the past, but I could shape my future. As the months passed, I grew more confident in my abilities. I started making more money, but it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the journey, the lessons I had learned along the way. I realized that success wasn't just about what you had, but about who you had become. I had gone from being just another person struggling to make ends meet to someone who had built something from nothing. The $100 I had started with seemed so small now, but it had been the catalyst for everything. It had given me the chance to change my life. I remembered my mother's words, and I knew that she would be proud. It wasn't about the money. It was about resilience. It was about never giving up, even when everything seemed hopeless. In the end, my $100 success story wasn't just about money. It was about finding the strength to keep going when the world seemed to be falling apart. It was about learning to forgive myself for past mistakes, about healing old wounds, and about realizing that success is a journey, not a destination. Sometimes, life doesn't go the way we want it to, We lose people, we face setbacks, and we feel like giving up. But if we keep pushing forward, if we keep believing in ourselves, we can overcome anything. My story isn't just mine. It's a story for anyone who's ever felt lost, who's ever felt like giving up. If I can turn my life around, so can you. And so, I stand here today, not as a man who has all the answers, but as a man who has learned the value of perseverance, of never giving up, no matter how hard life gets. The road from zero to hero is never easy, but it's a road worth traveling. No matter what you've been through, no matter how many times you've fallen, remember this. You have the power to rise again. You have the power to change your life. And that, more than anything, is the real success story.